via Aérea São Paulo S.A. VASP was an airline with its head office in the VASP Building on the grounds of Congonhas-São Paulo Airport in São Paulo, Brazil. It had main bases at Congonhas Airport and Guarulhos International Airport, São Paulo. History. The airline was established on 4 November 1933 by the state government of São Paulo and started operations in 1933. VASP was the first airline to serve the interior of the state of São Paulo, with two monos per Street 4. At the start of the 1930s, it was the only carrier to operate with land planes in the service area. At the time, this was a real exploit due to the lack of adequate non-coastal airports. Many landing strips were improvised in flat pastures. This insistence on using only land planes led to the building in 1936 of one of the country's most important airports, Congonhas, located in the city of São Paulo, far from the coast. During its early years, Congonhas Airport was popularly known as Campo da VASP. In 1939, VASP bought Aérea de Iguaçu, which included also a license to operate flights to the states of Paraná and Santa Catarina. In 1962, VASP acquired Loida Aéreo Nacional, which had a license to operate nationwide. VASP was therefore able to operate in the entire Brazilian territory. On 6 July 1959, VASP, Cruzeiro do Sul and Varig initiated the air shuttle services between Rio de Janeiro, Santos Dumont and São Paulo Congonhas airports, the first of its kind in the world. The three companies coordinated the schedules, operations, and shared revenue. The service was a direct response to the competition imposed by rail transportes aéreos. The idea, baptized as Air Bridge, inspired on the Berlin airlift, was so successful that it was abandoned only in 1999. Flights operated on an hourly basis initially by Convair 240, Convair 340 and Sub 90 Scandia. In a matter of a few months, the shuttle service led by Varig won the battle against rail, which was anyway bought by Varig in 1961. Sadia Transportes Aéreos joined the service in 1968. Between 1975 and 1992 it was operated exclusively by Varig's Lockheed L-188 Electra, which for some time and for the sake of neutrality did not have the name Varig on the fuselage, although it had been remarkably well run for most of its life as a state-owned company. By the 1980s, VASP was being plagued by inefficiency, losses covered by state capital injections, and a bloated payroll for political reasons. Under the Brazilian government's neoliberal policies newly introduced at the time, VASP was privatized in 1990. A majority stake was bought by the Candido Group, a company formed by the Candido Group of Brasilia and VASP employees. Under the command of its new owner and president, Wagner Candido, VASP quickly expanded operations in the country and created international routes, being the second Brazilian company to do so after 1965. However, after many years of mismanagement, financial losses, soaring debt and bad credit, in 2002 it cancelled all of its international operations to concentrate in the domestic market. By that time, VASP had plummeted from the second to the fourth position in the Brazilian airline market, flying an aged fleet of Boeing 737s and Airbus A300s. The company faced its worst crisis in 2004, which led to the suspension of service to many Brazilian cities and the cancellation of flights. As a result, VASP, once a proud, competitive airline, had its domestic market share reduced to 10%. On the 27th of January 2005, Brazil's then Civil Aviation Regulator, DAC, grounded the airline from operating scheduled services pending a financial investigation. VASP was allowed to operate charter services until April 2005, giving it a chance to prove its financial stability in order to retain its air operator certificate. As of December 2007, the company's only activity was providing maintenance services to other airlines. It had been operating under the new Brazilian bankruptcy law since July 2006, and had its recovery plan approved on the 27th of August 2006. However, in 2008 it declared bankruptcy. In August 2011, 9 of the company's planes, grounded at Congonhas-São Paulo Airport since 2005 and by now badly weathered and dilapidated, began to be dismantled and sold for scrap at auction. Each plane in its current condition was estimated to be worth only 30,000 to 50,000 reais, considerably less than even its monthly parking and storage fees. The company's fleet of a total of 27 planes had been grounded in similar circumstances since 2005 at various Brazilian airports. Services at time of closure. VASP operated services to the following domestic scheduled destinations: Aracaju, Belém, Brasília, Curitiba, Fortaleza, Foz do Iguaçu, Maceió, Manaus, Natal, Recife, Rio de Janeiro, Salvador, São Luís, São Paulo, Teresina and Porto Alegre. Services ended before closure. VASP once had a much more extensive network, which covered virtually every major Brazilian city with an airport, and in the 1990s included such international destinations as Buenos Aires, Quito, Miami, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Toronto, Seoul, Casablanca, Barcelona, Lisbon, Brussels, Osaka, Athens, Frankfurt and Zurich. Fleet. When the airline ceased its operations, its fleet consisted of Airbus A300B2-200, Boeing 727-200F and Boeing 737-200-300 aircraft. At the height of its expansion, VASP operated DC-10 and MD-11 aircraft on its long-haul international routes. The company operated Boeing 737-200 and DC-8 aircraft for freight. 1970 Accidents and Incidents. Accidents. The 8th of November 1940, a Junkers Ju-52/3 of a milligram 3E registration PPSPF taking off from Rio de Janeiro Santos Dumont to São Paulo Congonhas collided on mid-air with the de Havilland Dragonfly registration LVKAB belonging to the Anglo-Mexican Petroleum Company, which was preparing for a water land in front of Fluminense Yacht Club, today Rio de Janeiro Yacht Club in Botafogo. Both aircraft crashed, killing all 14 passengers and 4 crew on the VASP aircraft and the pilot of the Shellmex aircraft. The 27th of August 1943, a Junkers Ju-52/3 of a milligram 3E registration PPSPD flying from São Paulo Congonhas to Rio de Janeiro Santos Dumont struck a building of the Naval Academy located close to the airport shortly after the second attempt to land at Rio under fog. The aircraft broke in two and one part fell in the water. Of the 21 passengers and crew, 3 survived. The 13th of December 1950, a Douglas C-47A registration PPSPT while on initial climb from Londrina lost engine power, crashed and caught fire. There were 3 ground fatalities. The 18th of May 1951, a Douglas C-47B registration PPSPL en route from Santa Cruz de Rio Pardo to Presidente Prudente hit high ground while flying in bad weather. All 6 passengers and crew died. The 8th of September 1951, a Douglas C-47B registration PPS-PQ struck a house after takeoff from São Paulo Congonhas and crashed. 13 passengers and crew and 3 persons on the ground died. The 13th of May 1952, a Douglas C-47B registration PPS-PM operating a flight from São Paulo Congonhas to Bauru lost control when carrying out an emergency landing following an engine failure. 2 crew members and 3 passengers died. The 30th of December 1958, a Saab Scandia 90A registration PPS-QE flying from Rio de Janeiro Santos Dumont to São Paulo Congonhas during climb after takeoff had a failure on engine number 1. The pilot initiated procedures to return to the airport, but during the second turn the aircraft stalled and crashed into Guanabara Bay. Of the 34 passengers and crew aboard, 20 died. The 23rd of September 1959, a Saab Scandia 90A registration PPS-QV en route from São Paulo Congonhas to Rio de Janeiro Santos Dumont during climb after takeoff did not gain enough height and crashed 1.5 minutes out of São Paulo, killing all 20 passengers and crew. The 22nd of December 1959, a Vickers Viscount 800 registration PPS-RG while on approach to land at Rio de Janeiro Galeão was involved in a mid-air collision with the Brazilian Air Force Fokker S-11 serial number FAB0742 in the vicinity of Congonhas Airport. All 32 people on board the Viscount were killed, as were a further 10 on the ground. The T-21 pilot parachuted to safety. This accident eventually led to the closure of Congonhas Airport. The 26th of November 1962, a Saab Scandia 90A registration PPS-RA en route from São Paulo Congonhas to Rio de Janeiro Santos Dumont collided in the air over the municipality of Paraibuna, state of São Paulo, with a private Cessna 310 registration PTBRQ en route from Rio de Janeiro Santos Dumont to São Paulo Campo de Marte. Both were flying on the same airway AB6 in opposite directions and failed to have visual contact. The aircraft crashed, killing all 23 passengers and crew of the Saab and 4 occupants of the Cessna. The 4th of September 1964, a Vickers Viscount 701C registration PPS-RR operating flight 141 from Vitória to Rio de Janeiro Santos Dumont collided with a mountain over the location of Nova Friburgo while flying away from the intended track. All 39 passengers and crew died. The 3rd of March 1965, a Vickers Viscount registration PPS-RQ was damaged beyond economic repair at Rio de Janeiro Galeão International Airport when the aircraft departed the runway during a simulated engine failure on takeoff. The 31st of October 1966, a Vickers Viscount registration PPS-RM was damaged beyond economic repair when it overran the runway at Rio de Janeiro Santos Dumont Airport. The 15th of September 1968, a Vickers Viscount registration PPS-RE crashed at São Paulo while on a crew training flight. One of the 2 crew was killed. The 11th of January 1969, a Douglas C-47A PPS-PR was damaged beyond economic repair at Luanda, Paraná. The 14th of September 1969, a Douglas C-47B registration PPS-PP operating flight 555 took off from Londrina to São Paulo Congonhas, but due to a feathered propeller, had to return to the origin. While on approach for landing, the aircraft made a sharp left turn and crashed. All 20 passengers and crew died. The 12th of April 1972, ANAMCYS11A registration PPSMI flying from São Paulo Congonhas to Rio de Janeiro Santos Dumont flew into the side of a mountain, while on descent 50 kilometers north of Rio de Janeiro due to pilot mistake. All 25 passengers and crew died. The 29th of January 1973, a Douglas C-47 PPSQA crashed on landing at Rondonópolis Airport. The 15th of May 1973, a Vickers Viscount PPSRD was damaged beyond economic repair when it departed the runway on landing at Salvador Airport and the undercarriage collapsed. The 23rd of October 1973, ANAMCYS11A registration PPSMJ flying from Rio de Janeiro Santos Dumont to Belo Horizonte Pampulha during an aborted takeoff, overrun the runway and slid into Guanabara Bay. Of the 65 passengers and crew, 8 passengers died. The 27th of February 1975, an Embraer EMB-110 Bandeirante registration PPSBE operating a Flight 640 from São Paulo Congonhas to Bauru and Araraquatuba crashed after takeoff from Congonhas. All 2 crew members and 13 passengers died. The 25th of May 1982, a Boeing 737-200 registration PPSMY on landing procedures at Brasilia during rain made a hard landing with nose gear first. The gear collapsed and the aircraft skidded off the runway, breaking into 2 passengers out of 118 occupants died. The 8th of June 1982, a Boeing 727-200 registration PPSRK operating Flight 168 from Rio de Janeiro Galeão to Fortaleza collided with a mountain while on approach to Fortaleza. The captain descended below a minimum descent altitude. All 137 passengers and crew died. The 28th of January 1986, a Boeing 737-200 registration PPSME flying from São Paulo Guarulhos to Belo Horizonte unknowingly tried to take off from Guarulhos under foggy conditions from a taxiway. The takeoff was aborted, but the aircraft overran, collided with a dike and broke in two. 1 passenger died. The 22nd of June 1992, a cargo Boeing 737-200C registration PPSND en route from Rio Branco to Cruzeiro do Sul crashed in the jungle while on arrival. Procedures to Cruzeiro do Sul. A crew of 2 and 1 occupant died. Incidents: the 25th of April 1970, a Boeing 737-2A1 en route from Brasilia to Manaus Ponta Pelada was hijacked by a person who demanded to be flown to Cuba. The hijack lasted a day. The 14th of May 1970, a Boeing 737-2A1 en route from Brasilia to Manaus Ponta Pelada was hijacked by a person who demanded to be flown to Cuba. The hijack lasted a day. The 22nd of February 1975, a Boeing 737-2A1 registration PPSMU en route from Goiânia to Brasilia was hijacked by one person who demanded ransom. The hijacker was taken down. The 29th of September 1988, a Boeing 737-300 registration PPSNT operating Flight 375 en route from Porto Velho to Rio de Janeiro via Brasilia, Goiânia and Belo Horizonte confines was hijacked by one person on the final leg of the flight. The hijacker wanted to force a crash on the Palácio de Planalto, the official presidential workplace in Brasilia. The pilot convinced the hijacker to divert to Goiânia, where an emergency landing was made. The hijack ended with one victim. The 18th of August 2000, a Boeing 737-2A1 registration PPSMJ en route from Foz do Iguaçu to Garicaba Afonso Pena and on to Rio de Janeiro Galeão, Brasilia, and São Luís, was hijacked by 5 persons with the purpose of robbing 5 million Brazilian reals that the aircraft was transporting. The pilot was forced to land at Porcatu where the hijackers fled with the money. There were no victims.